Hey guys, you have perfect timing. Today I have a bit of a follow-up from your last visit, when we talked all about starting up a base, facilities, and 5th tier skill selection. This time we'll be looking at all the other skills and the different beneficial combinations they can take. Come join us for a snack, and we'll talk from there.
Nice to see you guys. I hope you like apple pie. Now, London, I'm glad you decided to follow up with this, as I think strategically picking skills in the Nightmare Zone can make things much easier.
They absolutely can, but it is undeniable that one's choices here are for the most part dependent on one's preferred playstyle. But let's not forget that the Nightmare Zone can be rather restrictive in playstyles and will harshly punish too many mistakes. But let's get into it. Junior? So last time you guys visited, one of the major components of our discussion was skill selection, particularly 5th tier skill selection to start off with, and which ones to pick from later on. This time, we're going to be looking at the other 4 and what I think are the most beneficial combinations. The first skill we'll look at is cardio. Cardio is mostly centered around buffs to one's stamina reservoir and some combat abilities, and when maxed out, specializes into backpacking, marathon, powerhouse, and acrobatics.
Ah yes, backpacking and marathon are more oriented towards stamina and carrying optimization, while powerhouse and acrobatics are more oriented toward minimizing stamina cost in combat and unlocking extra combat abilities.
Without going into too much boring detail, in a nutshell, yes. Now, it's the maximized ability that I'll be focused on, as I think those are what differentiate the specializations the most. Marathon allows one to sprint indefinitely while they are lightly encumbered. Backpacking is the bread and butter, but offers an additional inventory slot. Acrobatics optimizes close-range combat abilities by granting flying strikes without the need of a melee weapon. And Powerhouse allows grappling from the front, harder throws, a drop kick, and with the latest update, powerful hits with heavy weapons. Personally, I favor Marathon and Powerhouse as a close second. My third choice would be Backpacking, and Acrobatics would be last.
Well, as far as combat endurance goes, it looks like Powerhouse is easily the most beneficial skill to have, while Marathon is perfect for an infinite evasion. But didn't you say in your general survival guide that running should almost never take place? What would be the purpose of investing in Marathon?
Well, there are 2 reasons for this. 1, it is synergistic with other skills, and 2, although I did say that running should almost never happen, when it is needed, however, having infinite stamina can be a lifesaver and make hordes or a few simultaneous ferals much easier to evade, as not having enough stamina can lead to one's death. As for Powerhouse, it just seems to open up more options when in combat. Plus, the Powerhouse dropkick ability can stun a feral and allow one to finish one off quickly.
Alright, so what about WITS? From what I can understand, WITS are more oriented toward increasing searching efficiency. When specialized, one can excel in discipline, resourcefulness, stealth, and scouting. Discipline increases carrying capacity, weapon durability, stamina, and provides a small stamina bonus after a melee kill. Resourcefulness grants an additional inventory slot, increases consumable capacity while decreasing weight, and finally it increases bolt recovery. Scouting increases enemy detection, container detection, and gun durability. Stealth decreases enemy detection, fast search blunders, allows one to open locked doors quietly, and grants sprinting while in stealth.
Exactly right. Now, you can probably already guess what my first choice would be among these skills. Going in line with my earlier survival guide, I would easily favor stealth the most. The main reason being that stealth becomes important to staying alive in the Nightmare Zone. But the alternative reason feeds into my first choice in cardio, and that is it works synergistically. Having Marathon and Stealth on the same survivor can make one a fast-moving assassin, so that sneaking is much less of a drag and will minimize hazards while being undetected. However, I would not give all of my survivors the stealth specialization. Others would benefit from discipline and resourcefulness as a close third, and leave scouting for last.
Well, just from looking at the descriptions, it would seem that backpacking and resourcefulness would go together very well, and essentially create a pack mule for a survivor, as they will have an additional 2 slots if both specializations are used together.
Well, this is where personal preferences will come in. I have personally never run into the issue of not being able to carry enough things, especially if I have a vehicle with good storage space. However, I simply value being able to run indefinitely or have the prowess to take on Zeds with much less effort. But carrying on, we have fighting, which is oriented toward health buffs and fighting combat styles / weapon specializations. They are broken up into close combat, swordplay, striking, and endurance. Striking specializes in blunt weapon use and unlocks the Grand Slam attack, which can floor multiple Zeds at once. Swordplay specializes in bladed weapons, unlocks the ability to cripple Zed's legs, and execute while standing. Close combat specializes in small, close combat weapons, and unlocks the shove attack, as well as the ability to execute standing enemies. Endurance gives a major health buff, reduces injury severity, and unlocks a Grand Slam attack, which essentially flips Zeds over the user, but does not damage them.
Aside from endurance, can't each of the specializations be treated as equals, since they can all kill and provide bonuses to their respective weapon?
To an extent, yes, but there are small advantages and disadvantages that are not equally distributed. For example, blunt weapons tend to be a lot heavier than other weapons and are not guaranteed to kill when used. So I don't put striking high on my list. Depending on how I am building a given survivor, they will have a certain weapon specialization. My favorites are swordplay and close combat. Swordplay can easily execute enemies and is good for dismemberment when performing the leg sweep against multiple targets. And close combat can be similarly effective without requiring a melee weapon, meaning much less stamina use. So those would be my top 2, with swordplay taking a close first.
Ooh, the last one is shooting, which doesn't really need an explanation, but its specializations are sharpshooting, assault, gunslinging, and weapon handling. Sharpshooting steadies aim and allows rounds to pierce targets. Assault unlocks the ability to kick while aiming. Gunslinging unlocks aim snapping or auto-aim for a small amount of stamina. And weapon handling prevents jamming of firearms.
Alright, this one seems rather simple to me. Nothing in my book really beats the gunslinging skill, since it is the most efficient skill for killing Zeds with the least amount of ammunition. Otherwise, I would specialize in assault.
So how do you construct your community of survivors in regards to their skills?
So my community is split up into 2 teams. One team is meant for nighttime operations, while others are meant for daytime.
Wait a second. What is the whole purpose of having daytime and nighttime survivors? Isn't it best to simply have survivors that can survive under any circumstance?
You ask a logical question, and as I said in the beginning, one's choices and skill set is really up to how they enjoy playing, but I have my reasons for splitting survivors up. Logistically speaking, because specializations are inherently narrow, a given survivor can only be strong in so many areas before they reach a shortcoming. Take my 2 teams for example. My daytime survivors are meant for doing more of the dangerous antics, taking on Zeds in a more aggressive manner, looting, and less dependence on traveling undetected. They specialize in powerhouse, discipline, swordplay or possibly striking, and gunslinging, if possible. The main idea behind their builds being that they are ready for just about any circumstance that jeopardizes their safety. This is most useful when helping other survivors that are in high-risk situations.
Ah, I see. And let me guess, your nighttime survivors live on marathon, stealth, close combat, and gunslinging if possible.
Exactly. Nighttime is very dangerous in the Nightmare Zone, and I consequently require their low detection to avoid any blunders. Plus, with close combat, they don't require any melee weapons and typically are armed with crossbows or silent firearms. Technically, both groups can survive in the day or nighttime, but there are clear advantages to having stealth during the night and the alternatives during the day.
Interesting. So in summary, for cardio specializations, you would say that Marathon and Powerhouse are the most beneficial skills. One gives multiple offensive options, while Marathon acts as a perfect evasion, while working well with another skill. For wits, you recommend stealth and discipline. For fighting, you favored swordplay and close combat for their use in quickly killing Zeds. And lastly, you have a high preference for gunslinging as it is the most efficient means of killing Zeds with firearms.
Yes, that is correct. But I must stress that my way of building my survivors in the Nightmare Zone is just one opinion. The amount of combinations one can use will depend on what they look for and how they enjoy playing. The choices I make are purely for the purposes of survival. I'm not too hung up on doing things as quickly as possible. My main philosophy being that I cannot lose if I do not die. So my builds are based on that alone. Otherwise though, that is all this onion.
And this onion.
Yeah, that is all these onions have to say. Thank you very much for stopping by, guys, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys.